How would you feel if your favorite video game got knocked to second place? Hi, it's Larold, and today I'm going to be talking about why you should play Path of Exile. Maybe you've heard about it. If you have a friend who plays it, they probably can't shut up about how great it is. So why do Path of Exile players love the game so much? What do they, and I guess I'm part of it too, what do we get out of it? Why is it so fun to us? Why is it so endlessly replayable? Here's how I got started playing the game. In 2013, an old WoW guildie hit me up out of the blue. We hadn't talked in a couple of years, but he felt compelled to tell me about Path of Exile. I needed to know about it. He swore I would love it. And he was right, eventually. I tried it. I didn't get it. It was too complex. I had no idea where to start. I was overwhelmed. I needed a guide or a helping hand, and I just didn't have one. So I bounced off. I tried it again a couple of years later, but still had no idea what to do and bounced off a second time. The third time was eventually the charm. I was just frustrated by how bad of a job Blizzard had been doing with Diablo, and that really made me determined to learn this game, even though I was still confused. And it was genuinely one of the best decisions I've ever made, which sounds very silly to say about a video game, but it's true. It's on the level of first playing World of Warcraft or Sonic the Hedgehog, an experience that would shape the rest of my life, and I only wish I had committed to it sooner. So what is Path of Exile? It's an action RPG made by Grinding Gear Games as a spiritual successor to Diablo 2. And the original team that made PoE were a group of New Zealanders who sank their teens and 20s into Diablo 2 and wanted to make a game like it. It started out incredibly small, basically kickstartered, and became a huge success over time because of several design philosophies that set them apart from the rest of the video game industry. First off, it's free to play. This is done in an extremely ethical way. It's purely funded by cosmetic microtransactions with zero way to buy player power with real world currency, and they're incredibly adamant about that, which is quite a breath of fresh air considering the modern climate of video games. They're also connected to their community in a way that I've really never seen from any other video game company before. Not a lot of gaming companies have members of their board of directors go on to podcasts and talk on camera with streamers, but GGG does, and it's a core part of their marketing strategy. I think the reason for this is that the people running the studio are gamers. It wasn't really that long ago in the grand scheme of things that they were spending their lives playing Diablo 2. And they've been very open about what an incredible accomplishment, a miracle really, it is that this game has been this successful. They're also very active on the Path of Exile Reddit. They respond to feedback and use it in developing the game. Every company says they value feedback, but this truly is different. The level of discourse and dialogue between the player base and the developers is unprecedented. They also have a consistent content release cycle. GGG releases a new Path of Exile League every 3 months, pretty much like clockwork. This means there's new content to explore, a new economy to participate in, and new builds to try. There is a huge flurry of player activity in anticipation for the new league start. Basically, if you play Path of Exile, you're signing up for 4 Christmases a year. There is always something new coming. You know when it is. There are no droughts. There is no uncertainty. You're not worrying that a new expansion is going to come out this year or maybe next. You know it's coming. Now let's talk about the most special aspect of the game: infinite replayability. In 2019, Chris Wilson, the director of the company, gave a GDC talk titled Designing Path of Exile to be Played Forever. That talk is on YouTube, and it's fantastic. It's about 45 minutes and definitely worth a watch. Endless replayability is a core philosophy of this game, and it has been throughout its development. Let's focus on a feature that sets Path of Exile apart from its alleged competition: trading. Everything in Path of Exile can be traded to other players. This makes it so that getting items that are useful, but not specifically useful to your character or playstyle, still has value. When you outgrow items, you can sell them off to other players. You can craft items explicitly for the purpose of selling to other players. You can build in-game strategies out of efficiently farming items you don't want to use, but you know others will, and trade them away for currency you can use to buy the things you want. This is my preferred gameplay loop. It's literally most of what I do in playing Path of Exile. Because of this, there's a huge variety of in-game activities. There are multiple parallel in-game progression paths with infinite replayability, and you're free to do or ignore any of them as you please. This is all part of a philosophy of player freedom. There's freedom among builds, all the usual stuff you would expect in an RPG, casters, warriors, necromancers, rangers, but tons of archetypes you don't see in conventional games. Strength stacking necromancers, intelligence stacking berserkers, walking simulator builds that automate all of their casts, builds that can kill in-game bosses while literally AFK. Player freedom doesn't just stop at character builds though. It extends to in-game strategy. You are never pigeonholed into doing content you don't want to do to farm a resource you need to do the thing you do want to do. And this is because of trading. You can always just do what you like and then trade the profits from that to keep doing more of it. Another thing that sets this game apart is item crafting. Not just in the fact that it exists, unlike in sub-games, but high-end item crafting is a separate in-game unto itself. Because of all of this infinite potential, this game is huge. This is great for players. There's literally always something new to learn and something new to experience. We all have that part in our brains that enjoys having new experiences and learning new things, and this game never runs out of ways to scratch that itch. But there is a downside. A game this huge is daunting. It's scary for beginners. In a world of infinite possibilities and zero guidance, many people's first step is to back away and go do something else entirely. Something that's more constrained because constraints make objectives more clear. And I've been there more than once. The problem with that kind of directed play is that it runs out of ways to give you new experiences and teach you new things. The only limit to a sandbox is your imagination. And there's a new sandbox on the way, Path of Exile 2. It's scheduled to come out later this year. Path of Exile 2 was originally planned as just a new campaign for Path of Exile 1 with a shared endgame, but it has since been split off and expanded into its own separate game. Now I know what you're thinking, why not just wait for PoE 2? I'm so glad you asked. PoE 1 and PoE 2 are being developed as standalone games. They will both operate on the 3-month release cycle, staggered by about 6 to 8 weeks, so that you can bounce between the two games if you want, or just focus on one. GGG is redesigning tons of features between the two games. They are revamping the skill gem system, the flow of combat, the basic aspects of item crafting, and so much more that I could not possibly fit into a 2-hour-long video, much less 15 minutes or so. I'll start with the most incredible addition. They're adding WASD movement. This bombshell was dropped recently with the Mercenary class reveal. They started out by just showing the cool new crossbow and its grenade attachments and then casually slipped this in there.
But in order to really get shooter-like gameplay, we wanted to go further. In Path of Exile 2, we now support WASD movement. You can now walk around in any direction independent of aiming. In fact, if this is your preferred method of gameplay, you can use it on any class, regardless of what weapon type you're using. You can change between click to move or WASD at any time.
This is far from the only impressive new change. Many of the new changes come in the form of quality of life improvements, such as gem sockets and links no longer being part of your gear. Some of the PoE 2 quality of life improvements are already finding their way back into Path of Exile 1, and the community is extremely happy about it. They're also slowing down the pace of combat. Path of Exile 1 is a really fast game, like blindingly fast. You can literally clear screens of enemies without being able to see them, and that means you aren't really interacting with them directly. By splitting Path of Exile 1 and 2, GGG can maintain the lightning fast pace of play in Path of Exile 1 that enthusiasts, like myself, crave, while simultaneously creating a game that has a more realistic flow to combat, allowing players to cut through packs of enemies without just effortlessly screen clearing. This completely circumvents an awful situation I think we've all seen in a lot of video games. The developers come up with a new idea to balance out how much they've increased player power over the years. They implement it, and now the game is ruined. Do any games come to mind when I say that? I can definitely think of a couple that have gone down that route, but I'd be curious to see what other people think. Maybe I've missed a few. For a lot of players, Path of Exile 2 will be their first entry into the series. For others, it'll be the one that makes them stick around this time. I had a similar experience with Dark Souls and Elden Ring. I tried Dark Souls when it came out, liked it, played it a lot, but never actually finished it. I was surprisingly close. I had no idea how close, but I never actually sealed the deal and linked the flame. I did the same with Dark Souls 2 and 3. It wasn't until Elden Ring came out that I finally committed, actually got good, and beat the game. Then I went back and smashed the other games and enjoyed them more than ever. And that's all great, but here's the problem. I would have had more fun along the way if I had just gotten good at Dark Souls 1 in the first place. I would have felt better about myself. And what's better, really, being part of a dedicated niche community around a small game that breaks through to enormous mainstream success, or seeing a game you remember trying sort of is now super popular, trying it again and realizing you actually do like it. Neither of these scenarios is bad. They're both pretty good. But I think one is clearly better than the other. That's what you get out of learning and playing Path of Exile 1 now, along with just the fun of playing a good game. You have the opportunity now to get into this game while it's still on the verge of exploding in popularity when Path of Exile 2 releases. There's still time to learn the ropes, get your feet set, and give yourself a big head start on all the people who are going to be brand new when Path of Exile 2 launches. And on that note, we are going to be making a series of guides on how to get started with Path of Exile. There is one out right now. You should check it out. Ask some questions, we'll certainly be happy to answer, and that might even serve as a guide for videos in the series. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching and have fun playing Path of Exile. Bye.